You're nothing but a failed dropout who ended up guarding parking lots. My younger brother, Evan Calloway, spat the words like poison. They cut through the funeral hall in Savannah, Georgia, where soft hymns and murmurs had filled the air moments before. Now, every head turned. I'm Caroline Calloway, 42 years old. I drove 10 hours from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to be here for the woman who raised me after our parents died in a car accident when I was 13. My dark chestnut hair was tied neatly at the nape of my neck, and I wore a plain black dress I bought secondhand. It wasn't elegant, but it was clean. The faint scar across my jaw, a memory from Iraq, caught the light as I lifted my chin. Caroline can't even dress properly for Grandma's funeral. Evan continued, voice swelling with smugness. Look at her cheap dress, worn-out shoes. Grandma worried about you till the day she died. Always said you wasted your life. A few relatives shifted uncomfortably. My Aunt Rosemary whispered, poor Caroline. Never got her life together. They remembered me as the quiet girl who vanished after high school, scraping by with waitressing jobs before enlisting in the army. They didn't know the rest. So what do you even do now? Evan mocked. Parking lot security, gas station night shifts? I heard you don't even own a working cell phone? I stood silently near the casket draped in Lily's hands clasped. The same hands that once bandaged soldiers under enemy fire. The same hands that held my grandmother's when she took her final breath last week. You know what's truly sad, Evan said, pretending to choke up. Grandma left her estate to both of us equally. Half to me, successful businessman, homeowner, father. And half to this. He waved dismissively at me. Mr. Whitaker, our family lawyer, silver-haired late 60s, shifted in his seat. He cleared his throat, clearly mortified but bound by duty. I'll be contesting the will, Evan declared confidently. No judge would let someone who can't even afford proper clothes inherit $500,000. I'll make sure the court knows Grandma wasn't thinking clearly. A hush fell again. I didn't speak. Not yet. But I didn't need to, because at that moment the church doors opened and 3 uniformed officers stepped inside. Whispers of agreement moved like wind through wheat. My cousin Elise, who'd always begrudged how our grandmother used to braid my hair first at family reunions, lifted her chin and said, "It does seem unfair, Evan. You've built a thriving real estate business in Charleston. You've stayed. Caroline's been gone for decades." "Exactly," Evan said, voice growing bolder. "For all we know, she's been sleeping in her car somewhere in North Carolina. Look at her. She can't even afford a decent coat. When's the last time anyone heard from Caroline?" Elise pressed. "When's the last time she showed up for a holiday, sent a card? Anything?" Their words struck not because they were true, but because they had no idea what had happened to me. They didn't know how many mountains I'd climbed in Afghanistan carrying an 80-pound rucksack and the memory of my grandmother's voice. They didn't know about the letters I wrote to Evan over the years. Letters I never mailed, trying to explain the silence he mistook for abandonment. "She doesn't even have a permanent address," I bet Aunt Rosemary added. "How can someone inherit a home if they don't even have one?" The murmurs deepened. Evan watched it unfold with quiet triumph. This was no accident. This was rehearsed, deliberate. He'd poisoned their hearts before I ever stepped through the door. "I think we all know what the responsible decision is," he said smoothly. "I'll protect Grandma's legacy. I'll take care of the house, the land, the investments. Caroline can—" Him? Mr. Calder Whitman? Our family attorney interrupted gently. "If I may not—" "Now," Evan snapped, waving him away. "This is a family matter." "But sir, it concerns," I said, "not now." The room went still. Their eyes fell on me, full of pity, judgment, certainty that I was exactly who he painted me to be. And then we heard it. Click, click, click. The unmistakable sound of polished military shoes on the marble entryway. Every head turned as 3 officers in immaculate dress uniforms entered the reception room of the Savannah Heritage Chapel, their steps synchronized, their medals gleaming. At the front was Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks, sharp-featured calm silver oak leaves shining on her shoulders. Behind her were Major Lucas Ward and Captain Elena Ruiz, back straight, eyes forward. They stopped 3 feet from me. Ma'am Lieutenant Collant Brooks said, her voice clear as glass. She brought her right hand crisply to her brow in salute. "We apologize for the delay. The flight from D.C. was held on the runway." Without hesitation, I mirrored the salute. My spine straightened. 15 years of training settled into my bones like an old song remembered. "At ease, Colonel," I said quietly. "Thank you for coming." The silence was suffocating. I could hear the shaky breath Evan took, see Aunt Rosemary's face drain of color as the weight of the moment settled over the room. "Ma'am," Major Lucas Ward said, stepping forward, his voice calm but firm. "General Andrew Whitaker asked me to extend his deepest condolences and to inform you that the Honor Guard and Memorial Service at Arlington National Cemetery have been scheduled for tomorrow, should you choose to attend." General Whitaker." Evan stammered, barely audible. Captain Elena Ruiz glanced around at the stunned faces, brows knitting slightly. "Colonel Calloway, ma'am. We weren't expecting to find you at a civilian service. We were told this was a private family funeral." "It is," I replied softly. "She was my grandmother. These are my relatives." The officers exchanged a brief look. I saw Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks's jaw tighten as realization struck. "Your relatives, ma'am?" Major Ward asked quietly. "The same relatives who were just, yes," I said evenly. I turned to him. "Major, would you please provide them with context regarding my current assignment?" He stepped to attention. "Colonel Caroline Calloway currently serves as Deputy Director of Special Operations for U.S. Central Command. She has been awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, and the Defense Superior Service Medal." Captain Ruiz continued without missing a beat. "Colonel Calloway has completed 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, and currently oversees joint special operations across multiple international task forces." And then Lieutenant Colonel Brooks added, voice steady, "Additionally, Colonel Calloway has been selected for promotion to Brigadier General. Her confirmation hearing is scheduled in Washington next month." The room was frozen. These were the same people who minutes ago couldn't decide whether I was unemployed or living in my car. I looked at my brother. "Evan, you asked what I do for work." He opened his mouth, but no words came. "I serve my country," I continued. "For the past 15 years, I've worked in positions classified above your security clearance. That's why you didn't know where I was or why I left." I let the truth sink in. "I've missed holidays, birthdays, weddings. Not because I didn't care, but because I was either deployed in combat zones or working in facilities that don't exist on public maps." Lieutenant Colonel Brooks stepped forward slightly. "Ma'am, with respect, Colonel Calloway is one of only 3 women currently serving at her level within U.S. Special Operations Command." I nodded in appreciation and turned back to my family. "I don't have a permanent phone because I move between secure bases. I don't own a home because I've lived on military installations since I was 27. And my dress?" I glanced down gently, "is simple, because when you've held dying soldiers in your arms, designer fabric stops mattering." Aunt Rosemary swayed slightly, her skin pale as linen. "If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps me keep telling the truths families try to bury. Stay with me, because the next chapter is where everything truly changes." "Caroline, we didn't know," Aunt Rosemary whispered, her voice trembling. "No," I said, steady and calm. "You didn't know because you never asked. You assumed. You judged. You condemned me without once considering that there might be more to the story." Evan finally spoke, his voice faint. "But I called your old apartment years ago. They said you left. No address. No phone number." "Because I was deployed to Afghanistan," I replied, "where I spent 14 months training local units and coordinating operations I still can't fully discuss." Silence. Heavy, suffocating. The truth of 15 years of missed birthdays, Empty Christmas chairs, unanswered letters filled the air. "You want to contest Grandma's will?" I asked quietly. "You think I don't deserve her legacy because my dress isn't designer?" I reached into my worn black handbag and unfolded a document. "This is my financial disclosure report required for my security clearance. Would you like to know what a colonel with combat pay and special operations bonuses has saved Evan's face drained of color?" "The house Grandma left us," I continued. "I could buy 10 of them cash. But this was never about money. This was about respect, about family, about giving someone the benefit of the doubt." I looked at each of them, people who had known me since I was a child, people who had just torn me apart with whispers. For 15 years, I have served alongside people who would die for me, and I for them. People who judged me by my integrity, not by the price of my shoes. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, Mr. Whitaker, the attorney, stood. "If I may, I believe your grandmother anticipated this moment." He opened his leather briefcase and withdrew a sealed envelope. My instructions were to read this only if her intentions were questioned. He unfolded the letter written in my grandmother's delicate cursive. To my family, he read, voice soft but clear. "I know some of you may question why I left half of my estate to Caroline. You may believe she abandoned us. You are wrong." Evan sank onto a chair, his shoulders collapsing. Mr. Whitaker continued. "Caroline never left me. She called every week, sometimes from airport payphones, sometimes from secure lines that cut off without warning. She wrote me letters from places she could not name. She apologized for missing holidays, but I knew she wasn't absent because she didn't care. She was absent because she was serving something greater than herself." A few relatives gasped. Someone began to cry quietly. "She has scars she never complained about, pain she never spoke of, and strength this family has never bothered to see." My throat tightened. And for the first time that day, no one looked at me with pity, only awe. She sent me photographs whenever the censors allowed. Mr. Whitaker continued reading my grandmother's letter. Not of herself, but of the men and women she led. Of villages rebuilt. Of children walking safely to school because she and her team cleared the roads of landmines. She wrote to me about the letters she sent to the mothers of fallen soldiers, and about the nightmares she didn't want anyone else to carry. His voice softened further. "Caroline sacrificed comfort, safety, and the hope of a normal life so others could live theirs. She is the bravest soul I've ever known. I am proud that she carries our family name into battle, and even prouder that she brings it home with honor." Silence hung in the air, heavy, reverent. Someone in the second row sobbed quietly. "If anyone questions my decision," the letter concluded, "if anyone believes Caroline does not deserve what I leave her, then they never truly knew her. And if they never knew her, it's because they never tried." Lieutenant Colonel Naomi Brooks, Major Lucas Ward, and Captain Elena Ruiz stood at attention, eyes forward, their expressions solemn. They didn't need to speak. Their presence was the statement. When Mr. Whitaker folded the letter, I turned to my brother. Evan sat hunched over, his face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking. "Evan," I said softly, "I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being your sister. But I became something else too." He looked up, eyes red, voice cracking. "Caroline, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "I know," I said. "But sorry doesn't undo what was said. It doesn't erase the fact that when I needed family to trust me, to just ask, you chose to tear me down instead." I looked at the rest of them. "I return to duty next week. My attorneys will handle the estate. And I forgive you. But forgiveness isn't forgetting. And it doesn't mean pretending this never happened." Lieutenant Colonel Brooks stepped forward. "Ma'am, we should depart. You have a briefing at the Pentagon at 0600. I nodded. Then I turned back to my family one last time. Grandma always said strength isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how much you can bear and still move forward. I've carried that through war zones, and I'll carry it now. Evan rose slowly. Is there any way we can rebuild trust? I held his gaze. Maybe. But trust isn't given. It's earned over time. Trust isn't built on apologies, I said quietly. It's built on actions. And it's destroyed in moments like this. My eyes swept over the room, faces I'd known since childhood, faces that once tucked me into bed, sang at birthdays, held my hand at church. People who loved me, but never truly saw me. But I'll tell you what I told my soldiers in Kandahar, I continued. Every day you get to choose who you are. You can choose judgment, or you can choose grace. You can choose to assume the worst, or choose to believe the best until proven otherwise. I turned to leave with Lieutenant Colonel Brooks, Major Ward, and Captain Ruiz. But before crossing the doorway, I paused. "Oh, and Evan," I said, meeting my brother's stunned eyes. "Grandma's house, I'm donating it to a foundation for homeless veterans. There are too many men and women who actually serve this country sleeping under bridges tonight for me to hoard a second home I don't need." Gasps echoed. I didn't wait for a response. Outside, the evening air was crisp, quiet, a stark contrast to the storm inside. Major Ward walked beside me. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you handled that with incredible grace." I shook my head. "That wasn't grace, Major. That was 15 years of learning that you can't control what people think of you, only what you stand for." Captain Ruiz hesitated. "Colonel, what will you do about your family now?" "The same thing I've always done," I answered. "Serve with honor, lead with integrity, and trust that the people who truly matter will see me, not the rumors, not the assumptions." We approached the military SUV. As the engine hummed to life, I saw my reflection in the glass, 42 years old, a faint scar along my jaw, a simple black dress, and 15 years of service stitched into my posture. Grandma was right. Strength wasn't about striking hardest. It was about enduring war, loss, judgment, and still choosing compassion over cruelty. Behind us, inside that funeral home, my family was finally facing the truth. That assumptions say more about the one who makes them than the one they're made about. That real strength doesn't always wear medals. It sometimes wears thrift store fabric and speaks with quiet dignity. I didn't need their validation. I had earned my worth in the mountains of Afghanistan, in the deserts of Iraq, in the trust of soldiers who would follow me into fire, and in the flag folded over the coffins of those I brought home. But I had hoped naively that the people who knew me first would know me best. Instead, I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from family who stop trying to understand you. The vehicle turned onto the highway, darkness stretching ahead, familiar, steady. And in that world, the world of duty and honor, I was exactly who I was meant to be. If my story touched something in you, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a comment, and stand with me. Tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes. Your voice matters more than you know. I've learned that strength isn't always loud, it's choosing dignity when the world doubts you, choosing kindness even when you're hurt. And if life has ever made you feel unseen or underestimated, remember this. Your worth is not decided by their approval, it's proven by your resilience. Stay with me for the next chapter and for every quiet battle we refuse to lose.